وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. So we're going through the 30th narration of the Shama'il. Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu quoted that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, initially he would let his forelocks, we mentioned that it's referring to the front hair, he would let his forelocks just hang on his forehead. Like the forelocks, the hair on the front of his head would just be on his Mubarak forehead. But the polytheists, the mushrikun, they would part their hair. And the Ahlul Kitab, the people of the book, they would let their hair hang loose. So the Prophet ﷺ, he preferred to conform to the people of the book. So then, ثم فرق رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم رأسه. Then the Prophet ﷺ began to part his hair. So after, initially Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would have settled that the hair on his Mubarak head would be loose on his forehead. But after that, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would part his hair. In a narration of Musnad Ahmad, it is mentioned how the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would part his hair. So Urwat ibn Zubair radiyallahu anhu, he quotes from Aisha radiyallahu anha, said, Aisha radiallahu anha, she mentions that كنت إذا فرقت لرسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم رأسه صدعت فرقة عن يافوخه وأرسلت ناصيته بين عينيه. Then in the next chapter, the first narration of the next chapter, we see that Aisha radiallahu anha would comb the hair of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So like that she would then comb his hair and make the parts. So she explains how she would do it. That she's saying that when I would make the parts of the hair of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then صنعت فرقه عن يافوخه and وأرسلت ناصيته بين عينيه. Then basically she's mentioning that about the forelocks that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she would basically start from the front of the hair of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she would make that hair into two parts. So now here we can see the word thumma is used, and it's mentioning thereafter she would do this. So the scholars, the ulama, then they now differ that looking at the final practice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what will be considered sunnah, what will be considered the better thing to do. So some jurors, some fuqaha, they inferred from this that looking at the sequence of the actions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that first the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam made saddle. That means initially the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would let the hair just be on his forehead, and later on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would baqaida officially comb his hair into two portions. So they understand, like if you want to call it a chronological shift, that means that now saddle is no more permissible. This is what some scholars understood. So they felt that saddle will now be abrogated, that you can no more just let your hair flow on the front hair of your head flow onto your forehead. So Qadi Iyaz rahimahullah, he mentioned in I'lam al-Mu'lim, in إكمال المعلم, sorry, in إكمال المعلم, his commentary of Sahih Muslim, فظاهره أنه لأمر حتى جعله بعضهم نسخا. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you have to look at these actions, that first he would let his hair flow, and thereafter he would comb his hair into two parts. They understood that this now is naskh. So now we should no more let our hair flow. Now we should actually comb our hair into two parts. وَعَلَى هَذَا لَا يَجُوزُ السَّدْلُ. That according to this, it's not even permissible then for you to make saddle, to let your hair flow onto your forehead. And he quotes that Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. So you know Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, besides being a ruler, he was also a mujtahid. So he كان إذا انصرف من الجمعة أقام على باب المسجد حرسا. That he was a mujtahid, he was very learned, and he would keep a lot of scholars around him. So he would appoint guards at Jum'ah. So Jum'ah, all the Muslims will come for Jum'ah. يجزون كل من يفرق شعره. كل من لم يفرق شعره. Whoever did not make this path. Whoever had long hair, but they would not comb their hair, they would trim that person's hair. Like you're not keeping your hair properly, so you're not deserving of the hair. So you would appoint guards there. So we would think that you get a free haircut, isn't it? You want a free haircut, just go to the masjid and don't comb your hair, and then you'll get a free haircut. But this here shows that how they felt that it's compulsory, it's necessary. But other scholars, they rejected this. They said, no, that it's just now to show that it's permissible. That if you want to comb your hair into two parts, you can do that. If you want to let your hair flow, you can still do that. The fact that the Prophet ﷺ adopted one practice over the other doesn't mean that the alternate way is prohibited. So they said, وَيَحْتَمِلُ أَن يَدُلَّ عَلَى إِجَازَةِ الْفَرْقِ وَلَا عَلَى. Sorry, I got cut off from the internet. So what was the last part I was saying? I was mentioning that ويحتمل أن يدل على إجازة فرق. That this here shows that it's permissible to keep to patch your ways, to patch your hair. It's not ولا على وجوبي. It's not compulsory. That's what I was speaking about, isn't it? Before it got cut. So this here is what some scholars are of the opinion. Then a third group of scholars, they are of the opinion that it's mustahab. So they explain ويحتمل أن يكون الأمر باجتهاد منه صلى الله عليه وسلم في مخالفة أهل الكتاب آخرا ورجوعه عن موافقتهم أولا. So they saying that first the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم made his ijtihad, that initially he preferred to conform with the people of the book in those matters, and we explained it in the last lesson. And if you look at the notes, then again in today's lesson, we want to explain it and elaborate more on it. And I'll tell you the reason why we want to elaborate more on it. But this here shows that ijtihad of the Prophet ﷺ. So then they say, وَيَكُونُ الْفَرْقُ هُنَا عَلَى الْإِسْتِحْبَابِ وَالنُّدْبِ. That this will show that it is mustahab. Now here when they're saying mustahab, they mean that it is sunnah. Like mustahab, they're taking the literal meaning of mustahab, something which is preferable to do. So why is it preferable to do? It's preferable to do because it is sunnah. So you can see there are three views amongst scholars. But all three views encourage making a pathway between your hair. So Allama ibn Hajar Haytami, he preferred that it's actually better to part the hair. And yes, if you want to let your hair just flow, then that's permissible, but it's better that you rather part your hair. So the next chapter is all about combing the hair. And we'll explain about how often you should comb your hair, etc. So when you part your hair, then like you part your hair, then maybe it becomes disheveled again, then after how long you should comb it. But he's saying that it is better. فيه دليل على أن الفرق أفضل, that it's better to part your hair لأنه الذي رجع إليه صلى الله عليه وسلم. So, but that's better. The opposite of better is that it's still permissible to let your hair just flow. And this here is in contrast to those who say that it's mansukh, that it's abrogated to let your hair flow. So this here is what Allama ibn Hajar Haytami is mentioning. And then he explains why it is we can't say that it's abrogated, that you can't say it's haram or it's not permissible to let your hair flow, because he's saying وَزَعْمُ نَسْخِهِ يَحْتَاجُ لِبِيَانِ نَاسِخِهِ. Then you'll have to know which is the nasikh, which is the mansukh. We have other narrations which we read previously in فَرَقَتْ عَقِيقَتُهُ فَرَقَ. So we'll have to know that there is proof that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam at other times also allowed his hair to flow. So he's mentioning it's better. it's better to let the hair to comb the hair and make that middle pathway. However, Imam Nawawi rahmallah, who's a much greater Shafi'i, and in the Shafi'i madhab, a lot of fatwa is based on what Imam Nawawi rahmallah said. Imam Nawawi rahmallah mentioned in the Shafi'i madhab that it's just permissible. So it's like you have a choice. If you want to create that pathway, you create the pathway. If you want to let your hair flow, you let your hair flow. So nothing is sunnah or nothing is mustahab. It's like just you got the choice. So this here is the preferred view in the Shafi'i madhab. Hafiz ibn Hajar rahmallah approved of this, and he quoted it also in Fath al-Bari. وقال النووي الصحيح جواز الصدل والفرق. So that's the Shafi'i madhab. The Maliki madhab, Qadi Iyaz rahimahullah mentioned that Imam Malik rahimahullah said فرق شعر الرأس للرجال أحب إلي. That for males it's better. So you can see he's specifying it. For males, it's better that they must create this pathway within their hair. This is in the Maliki madhab, and therefore Qadi Iyaz rahimahullah mentioned والفرق في الشعر السنة, that it's sunnah to create this pathway لأنه الذي رجع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم والظاهر أنه بوحي, that apparently the final practice of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم has to be with wahi. Likewise, Alama ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah, he said والفرق سنة مسنونة, and he goes to the extent of saying إنها من ملة إبراهيم وسنته, that it's from the millah of Ibrahim alayhi salam that you create this pathway. And in the Hanbali madhab, Abu Bakr al-Khallal, he quoted what he said, that Abu Haris, he says that so now here you can see that in the Maliki madhab, it's sunnah. In the Hanbali madhab, it's sunnah. In the Shafi'i madhab, it's permissible. But now we Hanafis. But I quoted every other madhab and I didn't quote the Hanafi madhab. So Hanafi books are silent on this. That from the books I read, I didn't find any quotation. Sorry, did I break up for everybody or only for you? It's only for you. Oh, it's breaking up for everybody. Sorry, I think our internet connection is a bit bad. Wait 1 second. Okay, let's see now, inshallah, how it goes. So there's a few lessons which we taught already from here, and the internet didn't break up. So I'm surprised that it's breaking up right now. The last week's lesson was also from here, so I don't know why it's breaking up now. Okay, so basically I was saying that according to Abu Bakr al-Khallal, that's the last part which I said. So according to Abu Bakr al-Khallal, he mentions what his sanad, he quotes from Abu Harith, that Abu Harith, so the minute it breaks up, then just tell me, inshallah. And then we'll see how many times it breaks up. Maybe we'll do the lesson again if it breaks up a lot. So Abu Harith, he says that سألت أبا عبد الله عن الرجل يتخذ الشعر يطوله, that I asked Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, a person, he keeps his hair long, so what should he do? So Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, he said al-farq sunnah, that it's sunnah to create this pathway within the hair. So from here, I was saying that you can see in the three madhahib, we have Malikis saying it's sunnah, we have Hanbalis saying it is sunnah, and we have Shafi'is saying that it's permissible. But now in the Hanafi madhab, there's no qawl that apparently the Hanafi fuqaha didn't discuss about it. So then what do you do in such a case? So generally in the Hanafi madhab, if we don't find anything, now you know the hierarchy in the Hanafi madhab, that when we have to issue a fatwa or if we have to look for a ruling, we first go to those who are described later on as mujtahidun fil masail. So we go to like the Hanafis are grouped in different categories. So even now, if you find like a recent mufti saying something, it won't hold weight, because we have this, like you have to look for a person, for a scholar who was of that caliber to mention something. So we don't find anything in the books at our disposal from those scholars. Of course, maybe there's so many books which didn't reach us, isn't it? So the principle in the Hanafi madhab is that when we don't find anything, then we follow the Maliki madhab. So if Imam in a Maliki madhab, Imam Malik rahmallah is saying that it is sunnah, so we can also take that because Imam Malik is the ustad of Imam Muhammad rahmallah, isn't it? Imam Muhammad went for 3 years to Medina Munawwara, isn't it? When you're going for Umrah, I tell you, one of the amal of Medina Munawwara is to go and attend durus of hadith. The senior greatest muhaddithun of this ummah, they went to Medina Munawwara only and only to listen to hadith. So always remember this, inshallah, when you go to Medina Munawwara. So Imam Shafi'i himself, Imam Shafi'i went to Medina Munawwara for hadith. And he met Imam, the whole incident is mentioned, we mentioned in the preludes of the Muwatta. Like that, Imam Muhammad, he went for 3 years just to get hadith from Imam Malik rahmallah. And so you can see is the ustad and also the principles between the Hanafi madhab and the Maliki madhab, many of them are very similar. So that is why we can follow the Maliki madhab on this. Also, you can see that there's an explicit narration. So if you're a Hanafi and you keep your hair long, then you should you should keep this middle part with the intention of a sunnah. But the main thing we learn here is that we're saying that it's permissible, but we have to agree that we're saying that it's sunnah to make this middle part, but we have to agree that it's permissible to allow your hair to just flow without actually combing it. So Mullah Ali Qari rahimahullah, he said, وَيُؤَيِّدُ جَوَازَ الصَّدْلِ مَا رُوِيَ أَنَّ that it's mentioned from the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. That there were Sahaba radiallahu anhum, some of them would comb their hair and make sure that they must have this middle part, and some of the hair on the right side must be flowing towards the right ear, the hair on the left must be flowing towards the left. So there were Sahaba who done this, and there were the Sahaba radiallahu anhum who just let their hair flow, so the hair would come on the forehead, and that was fine. وَلَمْ يُعِبْ بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. And some of them did not those who would create this pathway, they did not criticize those who would not create the pathway. Another point to demonstrate that it's sunnah, that this concept which I'm saying, that for males to comb the hair to the right and to which is on the right side of their hair to comb it on the right, and what's on the left side of the hair to comb it to the left. Last week when we were talking about the plaits, then we mentioned that the plaits of the Prophet ﷺ was also like that, isn't it? The Nabi ﷺ plaited the hair to the side. So that also shows that that's how a male should comb his hair. Then again, here now you can see ultimately the Prophet ﷺ is then doing this here. So Alama ibn Hajar Haytami, he then explained about this again. وَعَلَيْهِ فَحِكْمَةُ عُدُولُهِ عَنْ مُوَافَقَةِ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ هُنَا. Like, why would the Prophet ﷺ turn away from following the Ahlul Kitab here? So he explains it, أَنَّ الْفَرْقَ أَقْرَبُ إِلَى النَّظَافَةِ. That having this, by combing your hair, it is closer to cleanliness, that it's like you're more clean. وَأَبْعَدَ عَنِ الْإِسْرَافِ فِي غُسْلِهِ. And you're not going to be wasting water when you have to wash your hair. So if your person is making ghusl, and if their hair is not tangled up, then they'll use less water, isn't it? You just pour water in the hair, or the water will all flow through. But if a person's hair is all tangled, then he'll have to use more water. وَعَنْ مُشَابَهَةِ النِّسَاءِ. That also it differs from females. That females, their hair will be going towards the back, and a male, his hair will be going towards the side. ومن ثم كان الذي يتجه أن محل جواز السدل حيث لم يقصد بالتشبيه بالنساء وإلا حرم من غير النزاع. So the whole thing is that if your hair resembles the hair of a female in whichever way, then you must know that it's haram. So that's like the general principle. If your hair is going to resemble a female's hair, if you're keeping your hair long and it resembles a female's hair, then it's haram. So you can only come to the level of discussing what's sunnah and not sunnah once it already went out of this category of resembling a female's hair. So there has to be a male where a male differs from a female. And Alama Bajuri also mentioned the same. Now this portion here to about Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam having this love for following the Ahlul Kitab. So we briefly touched on it last week, and we quoted from earlier works, but I decided rather we go again through what Mullah Ali Qari rahmallah mentioned, just so that none of you get ideas for interfaith, and priests invite you to his church and you go quote this hadith there, and then you make it seem so. As a Muslim, you shouldn't have this inferiority complex and try to show that we are like you and we are tabi'ah to you and we follow you and look. So that is why I'm quoting this, so that you can never ever use this narration for your own interest, and to think that, okay, now you want to make interfaith with the Jews and the Christians, and you go quote this, misquote this and narration. So for this, if you let the hair flow, won't it cover the eyes? No, so it's a few hair in the front. Because remember, the hair in the back, then that hair in the, it would go to the earlobes and it would go to the shoulders and like that, isn't it? So if you consider all the hair going to the shoulders, if you put it all in front, it will cover the whole face, not only the eyes. The person won't know what's the front of you and what's the back of you. So of course, it means just the hair, which is, if a person has long hair and then the few the strands in the front, the nasiya, the forelocks. So the whole discussion, like I explained last week, is on the forelocks. So it's referring to the forelocks. And remember, this here, it's also for males. You can see when they mention in the ruling, they all qualifying it for males, isn't it? So here Mullah Ali Qari rahmallah, then again he explains now why would Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam follow the Ahlul Kitab. So he's saying that either هو إما لمناسبة قرب الجنسية في مشاركة التوحيد والنبوة وسائر القواعد الحنفية. That now in today's times we talk about the Abrahamic Accord, but the Christians and Jews, they went further and further and further away from the teachings of Ibrahim alayhi salam. In the initial stages, when Allah Ta'ala when the revelation of the Quran just started, and when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when his nubuwah became manifest at the age of 40, at that time, they on earth, they were the ones who were following Ibrahim alayhi salam the most from everyone who was on earth at that time. But then after that, now Islam began to spread. So now we got guidance on how to follow the millah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So at that time, taking into consideration who was available, like who was on earth at that time who was following Ibrahim alayhi salam. So like, if you're writing a test and the whole class failed the test, so say the pass mark was 40 marks, everybody failed. But from all of those who failed, one person got 38 and another person got 20. So the person who got 38 got the highest. But getting the highest doesn't mean he passed, isn't it? Doesn't mean he passed. It just means that he done a little bit better, but ultimately he still failed. So in the initial stages, they were the ones who had the 38% pass mark. So there's no one higher than them. But then when Islam came about, now you're getting those who are, so then maybe the teacher now, if the whole grade 4, all the grade 4s fail, they say they're going to have a whole lot of grade 3s and no grade 4s. And what are all the grade 4 teachers going to do? So then they say, okay, come, we'll just pass you all. So that was in the initial stages. But now after that, the following years, now you get people who are passing, even they're making it above 40, now they pass. So now you no more have to just pass those who failed. But if as a woman we want to follow the sunnah of parting our hair by parting our hair and then gathering at the back, would we not get the reward of sunnah? Yeah, so you can do it, but then it mustn't resemble males in the least. So it must be like 100% against a male who keeps his hair till his shoulders. It must be absolutely different. Then you can make the intention. Remember, fuqaha are debating whether it's permissible or even sunnah. So, and that's for males. So all the more reason for females, the whole debate will come about, is it permissible? Or, and then this overriding principle that there must not be any mushabaha between males and females, because once you get mushabaha between males and females, then it's haram. So then there's no discussion of whether it can be sunnah or not. So this is the one reason that at the time they were the closest who were following Ibrahim alayhi salam, so the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam just would follow with them, because now the Sharia is being sent to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam gradually. So now in 2026, because you want a good life with Christians, can you go and quote this narration? Or you're quoting it totally out of context? Can you go into and then what happens is that those who believe in this interfaith, they take these narrations of Ahlul Kitab and go quote it to Hindus. How are Hindus Ahlul Kitab? So like completely they messing the whole thing, isn't it? They want to show that, okay, we and these believers, it's like fine, everyone is everyone. So you all know that how many temples are being built in the Khalij, etc. Now, Hindu temples, that's mushrikun. But it started off, like on Thursday night, we explained that, explaining that you start off by going into those categories where there's doubt, and then you fall headlong into haram. So like that, you start off little bit here, trying to bend the principles, and you want to integrate with the community. From where you got the principle, وَلَا تَرْكَنُوا إِلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا فَتَمَسَّكُمُ النَّارِ. Isn't? This is the teaching of the Quran. That وَلَا تَرْكَنُوا إِلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا. That who said you need to integrate in the community? Of course, akhlaq, all of that, it's there. But you don't have to now show yourself that you are tabi and we are so accommodating and then bend a whole lot of principles. And then you start off with bending principles who you assume to be Ahlul Kitab, and before you know it, outright atheists, mushrikun, Hindus, Buddhas. Now you are starting to accommodate everybody, and at the end, the only difference between you and them is that you believe in Allah and respect the Prophet ﷺ and like everything else, and you're saying that you respect their beliefs. So how can you respect their beliefs? The kadu samawat yatafattarn, isn't it? That it is as if the skies will split open, to say that Allah Ta'ala got a son. So we can never you must use all of these narrations and try to say that, look, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam loved the Ahlul Kitab, and that is why we must accept and go for interfaith conferences, etc. So that's the one reason. وَإِمَّا لِإِرَادَةِ الْفَهْمِ وَتَقْرِيبِهِمْ إِلَى الْحَقِّ. Again, this was in the initial stages of Islam. So, تَأْلِيفُ الْقُلُوبِ. You know how zakat was given to people at that time to bring them closer to Islam. So in that way, the Prophet ﷺ was bringing them closer to Islam. فَهُوَ بِالْأُلْفَةِ أَحَقُّ فَهُمْ بِالْأُلْفَةِ أَحَقُّ وَأَلْيَقُ. That they possessed greater entitlement to Islam because they were already following Ibrahim alayhi salam, or they were claiming to follow Ibrahim alayhi salam. So it's just that we agree on the principle. The principle is that we must follow Ibrahim alayhi salam. The principle we agree, but now the only thing is that you are not following him correctly. So all we have to do here is correct your beliefs. Then after that, you can worry about those who don't even believe, don't even have any regard for Ibrahim alayhi salam. But it could be because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has been mentioned in other scriptures. Yeah, so like I'm not so sure how you mean that. Yeah, the action is from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's not just going to bring people closer because his name comes there. Like the Prophet ﷺ didn't have this, that you quote me, so now I'll treat you better. Like, you follow my social media account, so now I'll treat you as a better, I'll show you more respect. No, yeah, it's based on principle, not on fame. The Prophet ﷺ didn't have any need for fame. He's not following them because your books quote about me, so now I'll try to keep you happy. No, it's based on these principles which the muhaddithun are saying. So we can't just make up principles like that on our understanding. That the Prophet ﷺ, of course, he wouldn't just do something because they're giving him little bit fame. He was offered a lot of fame, isn't it? And he was offered, you all know the incidents about the fame, but it's not because of that. It's because of these reasons. Then Al-Muhammadiyya rahimahullah mentioned, فَإِنَّ أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ كَانُوا مُتَمَسِّقِينَ بِبَقَايَا مِنْ شَرَائِعِ الرُّسُلِ. So now I have to quote all of this, so you'll got the message. That if you don't have to quote all of this, you'll got the message. You'll heard about this last week as well. The whole objective is that don't think that you can use this narration to show that we must follow and we must accept and integrate with the Christians and the Jews and be so accommodating to them and go to the extent of saying that we must even have one place where you come here and at your time of prayer and you pray to whatever prayers you want to do, and we come at our times and we'll perform salah. So you'll understand the whole concept. So you'll understand the concept, and I don't have to go through everything. And the Arabic is there, and inshallah in the notes it will be translated, and then you can just go through it. So you got the message. So I felt it my duty to stress and emphasize that you don't go and misuse this narration. Going to the next narration, Imam Tirmidhi rahmallah says, فبسند المتصل منا إلى الإمام الترمذي رحمه الله قال حدثنا محمد بن بشار قال حدثنا عبد الرحمن بن مهدي عن إبراهيم بن نافع المكي عن ابن أبي نجيح عن مجاهد عن أم هانئ رضي الله عنها قالت رأيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ذا ضفائر أربعة. So this here is the same as the previous narration that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had these four plaits and the four braids, and we explained it in detail last week. The main point here is that the way the Prophet ﷺ plaited his hair was on the sides. So Mullah Ali Qari highlights this point. Alama Ibn Hajar Haytami, he mentions that we don't consider urf, but last week we mentioned that according to the Hanafis, we consider urf. So according to Alama Ibn Hajar Haytami, he's saying that if a person wants to do it, then yeah, it shows that the Prophet ﷺ would plait his hair. So this already denotes upon حل ضفر الشعر حتى للرجال. It shows that men can plait and braid their hair. وليس مما يختص بالنساء. It's not something which is only a speciality of females. إلا باعتبار ما اعتاد في أكثر البلاد في هذه الأزمنة المتأخرة ولا اعتبار بذلك. He's saying yes, that in today's times where it comes that people don't like this plaiting in it, he's saying that we don't take that into consideration. But Mullah Ali Qari rahmallah, he quoted this here and he clarified that عادة السادة في بعض البلدان أيضا هي الظفر أيضا. He's saying, so he's using the word أيضا two times to show that it's also, so now Mullah Ali Qari rahmallah was more or less 400 years ago. So saying 400 years ago, it was an accepted social practice. So as a Hanafi, you could still say it is permissible. Now in today's times, is it an accepted social practice for males to plait their hair? Is it accept in any of your countries anyway? Is it an accepted social practice? Like if you see a man with plaited hair, it looks like, okay, it's normal. So in some countries, but some of you are saying G. And some of you are saying, most of you are saying no. So basically, that's the ruling. So if it's not acceptable a social practice, then you should not do it. But Mullah al-Qari mentions that even those places where it is an acceptable social practice, that condition is that it must differ from females. So females, they plait their hair to the back. So males plait their hair over the ears. So even if you want to plait your hair, and if you want to plait your hair, it has to be done in this way. So he's saying that just looking at this here, at how Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam would plait his hair, this already shows you yakfi fi adam at-tashabbuh bihinna. This already shows you that there is a difference between males and females. So we already explained this here in detail. Yes, it depends of your countries. Each one of you know your own countries, isn't it? That is why the principle also is that when you're asking a mufti a fatwa, you ask the muftis of your own country, because they are more aware of the social norms and social practices in your country. What Jews do plait on the side, please put some light. So the principles which I mentioned last week, you just apply those principles. That we mentioned that it must not resemble fusaq, isn't it? So apply those principles and see if you get your answer, inshallah. Listen to last week's lesson again, apply the principles and you should get the answer. Going to the next chapter, Bab ma ja'a fi tarajjuli Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What has been narrated concerning the so the word tarajjul, we'll explain it now. So for now, I'll just translate it as tarajjul, because we'll mention what's tarajjul. So you get two words. One is tarjil and one is tarajjul. So in the hadith, you'll find Aisha radiallahu anha mentioning urajjilu. So urajjil, from which bab it comes? It comes from bab taf'il, isn't it? Urajjil. Not from bab tafa'ul. But here in the tarjumatul bab, Imam Tirmidhi rahmallah is mentioning tarajjul. So he's mentioning it from a different bab compared to what comes in the hadith. If you look at the first narration, you'll see the word kuntu urajjilu. And so urajjilu, if you have to put it into a masdar form, it will be tarjil. So why did Imam Tirmidhi not mention bab ma ja'a fi tarjili? Or why is he using the word tarajjuli? So scholars, they explain, so Hafiz ibn Hajar rahmallah, he explained that tarjilu sha'rihi wa huwa tasrihu wa duhnu, and he explained that what is the meaning of tarjil? It's to firstly comb your hair and to also put oil on your hair. And then he quotes from Mashariq that rajulun رجل شعره إذا مشطه بماء أو دهن. So ليلين ويرسل الثائر ويمد المنقبض. That it means to comb your hair, to apply water on the hair. So sometimes if you don't have oil, you put water on your hair. After wudu, some people, the hair is wet, so then they'll comb their hair at that time after a shower without putting oil. So either because of wetness or because of oil. So that's the meaning of tarjil. Now would that be the same meaning of tarajjul? So Mullah Ali Qari rahimahullah. Oh, and what's the objective of combing the hair in this way here? It's liyalina, so that your hair now becomes such that it's all easily, it's now softer. It's no more, if it's all, especially if your hair is long, and it gets tied up together, it becomes more harder, isn't it? So when you comb your hair then becomes softer. وَيُرْسِلُ الثَّائِرُ, and then the hair also flows better. وَيَمُدُّ الْمُنْقَبِض, and basically to untie knots. So that is the whole reading, the meaning of tarjil. And when we explain the first narration, we'll explain more about it. But for now, Mullah Ali Qari rahmallah, he explains that at-tarajjul wa tarjil تسريح الشعر وتنظيفه وتحسينه. So can you see he's giving the same meaning to tarajjul and the same meaning to tarjil. So he's saying تسريح الشعر, it's to arrange the hair, وتنظيفه, and to cleanse the hair, وتحسينه, and to improve the appearance of the hair. Then he explains why Imam Tirmidhi rahmallah preferred to use the word tarajjul in the chapter heading. واختار الترجل في العنوان مع ورود بعض الأحاديث من باب التفعيل إلى إشارة إلى ترادفهما. That Imam Tirmidhi, he was an expert in Arabic and he was a wise person. He can clearly see what he's quoting is from Bab Taf'il. But in the Tarjumatul Bab, he's clearly using tarajjul from Bab Tafa'ul just to indicate that tarajjul and taf'il and tarjil both have the same meaning. So that's the reason why he's quoting it. And also وَغَلَبَةِ وُرُودِ التَّفَعُّلِ فِي أَحَادِيثِ الْبَاب. And also it does come from Bab Tafa'ul as well. So you have to choose from one, so he chose it from Bab Tafa'ul. But you got the meaning, you got the idea of what this chapter is about. It's about the combing of the hair of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then he quotes also from like what Hafiz ibn Hajar rahmallah explained, that to comb the hair, first making the hair wet or applying oil on the hair and then combing the hair. Now Imam Tirmidhi, he quotes this here immediately after the chapter of the hair of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, isn't it? So our Ustad, when he was teaching, not everything is from books, isn't it? Some things you can explain also, which is not from books, it's from some things from kutub and some things from kutub. So when he was explaining this chapter here, then he mentioned, he's saying that Imam Tirmidhi brought this chapter of combing after the chapter of the hair of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we already done and we already read several ahadith which explains how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was blessed with beautiful hair, isn't it? The hair of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was neither very curly, it was not very straight, it was so perfect. But still the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam took out time to comb his hair. So the reason for this, Imam Tirmidhi is bringing it to show that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, some people don't need to comb their hair, isn't? Their hair will just look neat. Not everybody needs to comb their hair. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was like that. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would not need to comb his hair. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam got this whole responsibility of spreading deen to the entire universe. Such weight on his shoulders. Now to take out time and comb his hair, why did Imam Tirmidhi bring this chapter? It's to indicate Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whenever he was blessed with any bounty, then he put an effort into preserving that bounty out of as an acknowledgement and as shukr. So this is what our Ustad explained to us. That even though the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not need that so say for example, you took a glass and you're going to give it as a gift to someone. Now, next time you go to their house and you pop in and you see they're drinking from that glass, wouldn't you feel happy in your heart that they gave you something? These glasses are so, anyone can have a glass. They could choose any glass, but they're using your glass. You'll feel so happy about it. That when you see the person using that glass, it will bring more happiness to your heart than the person if he went and he wrote a whole long thankful message to you that I'm so happy and so grateful from the bottom of my heart. I don't know how to thank you. But when you see him, you get more happiness, isn't it? Compared to all his old long speech which he writes in thanking you. So the Prophet ﷺ would acknowledge the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this way. And the Prophet ﷺ would use the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and maintain the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why Imam Tirmidhi rahmallah brought the siyam. Besides that, there are other reasons as well. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam wants to teach this ummah that cleanliness is part of iman. So Alama ibn Battal rahmallah, he explained at-tarajjul min babin nadafa. So the first thing is cleanliness. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam went the extra mile to ensure that he maintains cleanliness. Wazina al-mubaha. Now look here, zina mubaha. So adornment that's permissible for males. Because not all adornment is permissible for males. For example, putting surma in your eyes, ismi surma, maybe it doesn't change the color, but if you put some of those dark black surmas, then it will maybe make your eyes like you got like a border around your eye, isn't it? So now it's sunnah to put surma. But if you're going now for a wedding function, should a male then put surma? So now it's no more sunnah. So there's times for particular sunnah. So there's zina which is permissible for males, and there's zina which is not permissible for males. There's beautification, adornment that's not permissible for males. So now a male, can he go and put lipstick? He can't put lipstick, isn't it? So it shows that now Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu said, أحب أن أتزين لهن كما أحبهن أن تتزين لي. That I would like to adorn myself for my wife, just like how I would love my wife to adorn herself for me. It shows that it's adorning yourself as a male. You should adorn yourself like a male. Don't go adorn yourself like a female. And Alama ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah, he explained an important point here, and he said, وَفِي تَرْجِيلِهِ لِشَعْرِهِ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ وَسِوَاكِهِ وَأَخْذِهِ مِنْ شَارِبِهِ وَنَحْوِ ذَلِكَ. Even we look at all of these different actions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam took out time to comb his hair, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam took out time to use miswak, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam took out time to clip his mustache, etc. Like we're saying, the Prophet ﷺ had such a great responsibility, isn't? You see a person, he got a long mustache and looking so haphazard, and me, I'm very, very busy, I don't get time. But the Prophet ﷺ was the most busiest. So he's saying, ما يدل على أنه ليس من السنة ولا الشريعة ما خالف النظافة وحسن الهيئة في اللباس والزينة التي من شكل الرجال للرجال ومن شكل النساء للنساء. That a person, even if they're going into zuhd, they cannot become untidy and become dirty and then assume that they are following the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That the sunnah, it's clear, no matter how simple you want to become in life, you will have to adopt to these two principles. One is cleanliness. So now you didn't change your clothes for 5 days and you go work under a car, and now there's all black on your clothes. Then you mess curry, now there's all that on your clothes. And then there's sand on your clothes and all dust on your clothes. So, and then you say that, no, this is simplicity, you mustn't have love for this dunya. No, so you're contradicting the sunnah. So a condition for anything, like, you're saying that it has to pass these two tests, then you can know it's sunnah. Two tests which any action will have to pass, any practice you want to adopt. There has to be cleanliness in it, and it has to be neatness in it. So those, husn al-hay'a, you translate it as neatness. Anything can only be considered sunnah if it's clean, and if it is if it has a neatness. وَالزِّينَ الَّتِي مِنْ شَكْلِ الرِّجَالِ. And then there must be this kind of adornment. So adornment, مِنْ شَكْلِ الرِّجَالِ لِلرِّجَالِ. Males must look at what are the norms for males to do for adornment, and females must look at what is the norm for females. So even as a female, that when there's times that you need to adorn yourself, then you should adorn yourselves. And inshallah, your appas will explain to you all the different times when a female should adorn herself. So Allah Ta'ala mentions, for example, when males should adorn themselves, or even females when they are performing at home, Ya bani Adam khudhu zinatakum inda kulli masjid, isn't verse number 31, verse number 31 of Surah Al-A'raf. So, خُذُوا زِينَتَكُمْ عِنْدَ كُلِّ masjid. When you go into the masjid, it's sunnah to beautify yourself and go to the masjid. So not only when you're coming live on camera, then you adorn yourself. You must adorn yourself when you're going to the masjid as well. So Imam Abu Dawud rahimahullah mentioned, and this is the principle about hair, man kana lahu sha'run falyukrimhu. If a person has hair, then falyukrimhu, honor your hair. So can you see, you have to actually honor your hair, meaning that if you have hair, then now it's like falyukrimhu, it's the right of your hair that you oil your hair. And we'll see, inshallah, we'll go through a few narrations that one sunnah we're mentioning here. And I gave you the example of the grease of the car and the oil of the food. But oil of hair would be on the clothes of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So sometimes on Jumu'ah also, we make sure to let some drops fall onto our clothes just so that we can be following the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there would be oil which he should apply on his hair, would be on his clothes. Now here there's an objection which comes about that, okay, we're seeing now so much that you must comb your hair and there's nadafa in it, there's cleanliness in it, and there's adornment in it, and there's neatness in it, and it's so good. But Imam Nasai rahmallah in his sunan, he quoted with his sanad that one person from the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, his name was Ubaid. So, أن رجلا من أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقال له عبيد. So the fact that we don't know which Ubaid it was from the Sahaba, it's fine because all the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum were honest and reliable. So therefore, if a Sahabi is not known, you can still grade the narration as authentic. So it's authentic narration, even though we don't know who the Sahabi was. Basically, Abdullah ibn Burayda, he says, أن رجلا من أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقال له بريد قال إن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كان ينهى عن كثير من الإرفاع. That the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم forbade, what's the word, forbade or forbade? I tell you, I'm a grade 7 dropout. So now maybe my English is wrong. So maybe the Prophet ﷺ forbade, if it's wrong, then you must just correct it. The Prophet ﷺ forbade كثير من الإرفاع, that lots of irfa. So then the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, the audience, they asked him, what is the meaning of irfa? And this year we spoke about this concept before, isn't it? That the words differ according to era and area. So even though they were so close to the era of Sahaba radiallahu anhum, there were certain words which they could already not understand. So they asked him, what's the meaning of irfa? So he said, tarajjul, that to comb your hair. So now here we're saying that this whole chapter to prove Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam would comb his hair, but here there's another narration we're saying Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam forbade combing the hair. So the answer to this here, Alama Khattabi rahmallah said that معنى الإرفاء الاستكثار من الزينة وألا يزال بهي نفسه. That the meaning of it is not just combing your hair. It means like combing the hair is one portion. Like he answered by mentioning a ba'd, of mentioning only a portion. But this word irfa actually means to become extravagant, excessive indulgence in adornment to such an extent that Allah yazalu yuhayyu nafsahu or Allah yazal bihayyi nafsihi. So according to the different manuscripts of Ma'alim al-Sunan, if you take Allah yazalu yuhayyu nafsahu, that the person every time you see him, you see he carries a small mirror with him, and every now and then pulling out the comb, checking like this. Once you are traveling in one country, and so in the airport, the person is waiting, and we see that he actually was doing this here. He has a razor with him, and all the time he's shaving, like as if his hair would have grown in such a short period of time. After 5 minutes, again, pull it out, check the mirror, and shave. Maybe he's traveling now, he's going to meet people. But he actually saw a person who was like that, continuously just shaving to make sure he's so well groomed. So that is what the Prophet ﷺ is prohibiting from. That all the time, like as if this is now your goal in life. Like constantly you just combing your hair. And you combed your hair in the morning. Now, of course, now after that you slept, maybe your hair became a little bit disheveled, then it's fine. You don't have to all the time become like so obsessed with it that you're not allowing it to be a little bit like a little bit to go out of place. You done your duty by doing the ikram of your hair in the beginning, and after it became a little bit disheveled, then that's fine. So he then mentioned كره رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الإفراط في التنعم والتهن والترجيل. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم would not like that a person must go to go in excess to the siyam. That like every week you buy the barber. Every week you're busy putting dye on your hair, and every week you're busy. No, so the Prophet ﷺ would not like that the person must go. فَأَمَرَ بِالْقَصْدِ فِي ذَلك. So one is that this word irfa already has this meaning of excessiveness, isn't it? And then look at the words. Hafiz ibn Hajar in Fath al-Bari, he mentioned this point, that the word already, it's showing that there's excessiveness in it, irfa. But then the Nabi ﷺ is also then putting kathir min al-irfa, that a lot. So now this here shows that when a person is like this, like all the time, just worried about his hair, all the time making sure that they so like like so neat and tidy. Then of course that then distracts you from your goal in life. That your goal in life wasn't to come and just beautify your body all the time. Your goal in life is to worship Allah Ta'ala. So yes, little bit what's necessary, you do it, and then after that, little here and there, maybe you're traveling in a car and the window is open, and then the wind blows on your hair, then maybe your hair is soft, then your hair becomes a little bit disheveled, then it's fine. Now you don't have to now worry that you must go again and get and maybe put. Do any of you use gel? I don't know if you still have gel. When you was young in school, and everyone used to like to put, all the people there used to like to put gel on their hair. So I don't know if it's still the thing, or maybe there's new things now which they put. So it's you don't have to be all the time like that. So that's the first objection. Then the second objection is, which commentators of hadith mention under this narration, that Mu'afa Imran, he quoted with his sanad that the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-badadatu min al-iman. So badada is explained as Abu Ubaid al-Harawi, he quotes from Alama Kasai rahmallah, that it means that the person, yakuna rajulu mutaqahhilan rathul hay'ah. It means when a person is like this, like in plain appearance. So it means like he's not very adorned. You can take it in that way. It's very wearing very simple clothing. So generally, if you have to translate it with one word in English, we'll translate it as simplicity. But it means that Hafiz ibn Hajar in Fath al-Bari is saying rasatatul hay'ah. That it actually means that when you look at a person, he's not like looking very neat or very elegant. He's looking like very, very like so much simplicity within his attire, within the way he is coming across. So what is the answer to this? Because if you're going to be combing your hair, now you're no more going to look like Nabi Sallallahu is praising it and saying it's part of Iman. So how do you combine the two? So Alama ibn Battal rahmallah, he explained, wal muradu bi hadha al-hadith ba'd al-awqat. That yes, at certain times Muslims should adopt this this extreme simplicity. Our Ustad Hassan Dokrati told us, when you get married, for the first 5 years of your marriage, don't think you're going to go practice upon this narration. Then what else? Your spouse is going to be looking for other people. Now you come to al-bazazatu min al-iman. No, now it's the time to adorn yourself, isn't it? For your spouse. So it shows ba'dul awqat. There's time and place for everything. So ولم يأمر بلزوم البزازة في جميع الأحوال لتتفق الأحاديث. So simplicity is not for all times. There's places when you must be very simple, and there's times when you need to adorn yourself. There's times when you must wear elegant clothing. Now on the day of Eid, you pitch up there, it's so looking like the hobo. Maybe people pull out some coins also throw to you. They think you're a beggar. So that's not sunnah. That now on the day of Eid, you're supposed to be adorning yourself. The day of Jumu'ah, you're supposed to be beautifying. Those are the clear narrations. And then he says, look at this, for every salah 5 times a day. وَقَدْ أَمَرَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى بِأَخْذِ الزِّينَةِ عِنْدَ كُلِّ مَسْجِدٍ. So 5 times a day you're supposed to be adorning yourself. So there's times for everything. Yes, there are times when you also adopt a simplicity. So that is how you combine the two narrations. And Alama ibn Abdul Barr, the way he explained it, he's saying that now you want to wear the absolute highest and best clothes so that you can become famous for it. So maybe there's like, like a new brand which came out. You want to be the first person to wear that brand. and then you put it as now as on your Instagram, you're posting and posing with it, and then you can't even afford it now. Maybe it became so expensive, and you're going now in a debt just so that you can wear that brand, you can wear that kind of clothes. The easier way for men to understand it is in shoes and watches, isn't it? Maybe our kurtas is cheap. Even if you buy a highly the most expensive shiaka kurta you get is 300 riyals. And for females, you get certain brands of abayas, which is 5,000 riyals, isn't it? So, but it's maybe in shoes or maybe like this. Now, you just want to wear the most elegant and the highest, and you're living beyond your means. Then you apply al-badadatu min al-iman. So basically, he's saying that you live within your means, and your clothing should not be such that it's now emptying out your credit card, and now you're going on to budget, and you're going into debt. So that should not be the case. But of course, it does not contradict your daily neatness and beauty. And Hafiz ibn Hajar rahimahullah, he explained this here, and he said, ترك الترفه والتنطع في اللباس والتواضع فيه مع القدرة. He's saying that this means when you may be earning a very high salary, like a lot, but you wear generally what just a little bit higher than what, if you're a scholar and you're muqtada, then just a little bit higher than what everybody else is wearing. Because you know Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, it's his sunnah, isn't it? Imam Abu Hanifa would wear higher than what everybody else was wearing. But of course the condition is that you can't get you can't get a pride. And if you get pride, then for you, then you must practice. So I is saying for في بعض الأوقات that at certain times al-badadatu min al-iman will apply. In the same way, at certain times al-badadatu for certain people al-badadatu min al-iman will apply. If they know that they're going to wear this clothes, and then they're going to be now all the time thinking, is the opposite gender looking at me? Are people seeing like I'm so elegant, dressed so beautifully? Then for them, they must now practice on al-badadatu min al-iman. So basically, you just have to, again, it goes back to urf, isn't it? I'm a bit lost. Are we still discussing the issue of tarajjul instead of tarjil in the chapter? No, so tarajjul and tarjil we already completed. Now we're talking about generally combing the hair. Like how the Prophet ﷺ, about him combing his hair, but there's other narrations which seems to prohibit combing or to prohibit yourself from becoming very neat. So that's the second objection. And then the third objection is Naha Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam ani tarajjul illa ghibban. So Imam Tirmidhi rahmallah in his Jami', he quoted that you shouldn't be combing your hair every day. So now if you shouldn't be combing your hair every day, then it means you mustn't be having neatness every day. So Hafiz ibn Hajar rahmallah, he explained this here in Fathul Bari, that like you know, you tell someone, a person comes to you maybe once a week, and you say, hey, don't come to me every day. You can say, I'm not coming to you every day. But you're using the word every day to show like you're coming so often, or you're doing this here like so often. So it's like a metaphorical way. Even in English, you say that every day you're going there to that place. Maybe you say your son wants to go play soccer. Then you say every day you're just going to play soccer. You say, Mommy, the last I went was last week Saturday. So you say, no, every day, yeah, it's in the meaning of like going out so often. So like this again, that you mustn't be now carrying this comb and all the time just combing your hair. So this is the answer to that. So the summary of all of this is that don't become obsessed with your looks. Be neat and don't become obsessed with your looks. And then in the Muwatta, there is a narration where the Prophet ﷺ saw a person, Ata ibn Yasar rahmallah, he said, Anna Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam ra'a rajulan tha'ir al-sha'ri wal-lihya. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam saw a person who was very disheveled. His hair also was disheveled, and his clothes also was disheveled. Everything was disheveled. So the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam indicated to him that he must go and neaten himself up. So even though this here it's a mursal narration, it is the sanad is sahih, and the other narrations as well which support this. Are there any questions? Okay, so for today, inshallah, we'll conclude here because I need to be get going. So, inshallah, I have to attend something. So, we'll stop here, inshallah. If you want, you can recite salawat on your own. Isn't You don't only have to do it when we do it in congregation. You recite salawat on your own also. I need to go, but maybe you don't need to go. So then you can recite durud. If you don't have all those durud which we recite, then recite durud Ibrahim. So while you'll recite durud Ibrahim, we recited 40, the 40 duruds. So now you can recite it to yourself. You'll only will do it if you do it in congregation. So will any of you recite? Just recite, inshallah. Don't only do when we do it in congregation. If I wasn't going out, we would have done it. Now I'm going out, so you recite on your own, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.